look down a cliff. Let's climb it. Oh, there's a lion. Let's go see if he's hungry. Can't we just sit around for once? Ow!
This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! It's not just another day in the park. Sunday, August 11th, 1991. Children all over the United States woke up to a slow day. Maybe you were one of them. Maybe you sat at the breakfast table and ate a bowl of Lucky Charms back when it still had blue diamonds. Maybe you looked over at your dad reading the newspaper, the day's headlines probably being about the Lebanon hostage crisis that had been ongoing since 1982. And maybe you weren't one of the many families who went to church that morning. Maybe you didn't have to put on your Sunday finests, and could instead plant your butt in front of the TV. Sundays were typically dire for children's television, just Sesame Street over on PBS. But if your house had cable, you had some more options. You could watch old Popeye and Looney Tunes cartoons on TNT. The USA Network had Cartoon Express. The Disney Channel would be rerunning The Wuzzles. But maybe you switched to Nickelodeon, the first cable channel for kids. Maybe out of habit, maybe because you had heard that they were doing something special today. It's an animated morning, but mostly shows you'd already seen before. Starting at 8 a.m., you'd catch an episode of Count Duckula, followed by Heathcliff, then Cartoon Kablooey, and finally Inspector Gadget. And then 10 a.m. rolls around, and Nickelodeon premieres 3 new cartoons, all at once, all made by Nick. And maybe you hear the word Nicktoons for the first time. And the first of these 3 new cartoons, well, perhaps not the flashiest, perhaps not the most exciting, and yet it's something you've never seen before in animated television. Something human and comfortable and relatable. And that's how you might have met Doug for the first time.
It's big, it's new, it's coming every Sunday, and it's
me, Doug.
That's right, Doug. Don't miss Doug this Sunday and every Sunday at 10, 9 Central, only on Nickelodeon.
Dear Journal, it's me, Doug. You know, last week my life was just about perfect, when all of a sudden my dad said the 2 most feared words in the whole world were moving. Dad, can you try to dodge the bumps? I'm getting ink blops on my journal.
That's a big 10-4, good buddy. Look out, Bluffington. The funny family's arrived.
Population 20,001. I guess the 1 is me.
In this first episode, we're introduced to Doug Funny, an 11-year-old boy with a big imagination and lots of worries. He's moving to the mid-sized city of Bluffington, leaving his old friends behind and starting his life over. Thankfully, he has his journal to work through his anxieties with.
Think of all the new friends I'm about to meet. But what if they don't like me? What if I don't fit in? What if they think I'm a doofus?
Despite his worries, it doesn't take long for Doug to make friends. Friends like Skeeter Valentine, a cheerful goofball kid who loves to DJ, beatbox, and make funny noises. It's Skeeter that introduces Doug to his new hangout, the Honker Burger, the first of many Nicktoon fast food joints.
Yo, man, let me take care of this. The new kid wants 3 moo cows, 1 no cukes, 1 no sneakers, 1 wet one, 4 tubers, and 4 for the vine. You want anything else?
Well, how do you order a salad from the salad bar?
One salad from the salad bar.
It's at the Honker Burger where Doug first crosses paths with Roger Klotz, the leather jacket wearing school bully, usually flanked by his underlings and his loyal cat Stinky. Roger has a tendency to play into Doug's insecurities, making him nervous that he'll embarrass himself at the dance, or tricking him into participating in bogus Bluffington traditions, like trying to track down the local cryptid, the nematode.
Now listen up. Here's how it's done. First, you crouch down like this. Then you make the nematode mating call, which goes like this. Coo-loo-coo-coo. Now you try it. Coo-loo-coo-coo. How's that? A little more feeling funny. This is supposed to be a mating call. You sound like you're dying.
And then there's Patty Mayonnaise, Doug's first big crush. She's smart, she's kind, she's athletic. To Doug, she's perfect.
Is this a private party or can I join you?
Oh no, the ketchup. I must have squirted you.
It's okay, really.
I'm sorry.
No, really, it's okay. See? You have wonderful aim.
Really?
Well, I see you two have met. Patty Mayonnaise. This is my buddy Doug Funny.
Doug, Skeeter, Roger, and Patty form our core cast, but the city of Bluffington has all sorts of interesting characters. Among Doug's 6th grade classmates, we have Bebe Bluff, the rich girl whose father owns much of the city. Chalky Studebaker, the school's star athlete. Connie Benge, who herself has a bit of a secret crush on Doug. Al and Mo Schlesh, a pair of nerdy twins who are handy if you need a little science in your life. And all of these kids under the stern, watchful eye of Vice Principal Lamar Bone, who's usually antagonistic, but he has an interiority of his own. An interiority that involves yodeling.
And it goes a little something like this.
Next door to Doug live Bud and Tippy Dink. Mr. Dink is a wacky but sweet guy with a lot of money who buys a ton of unnecessary gadgets, all very expensive. And Mrs. Dink is the monotone, no-nonsense city councilwoman who eventually becomes mayor of Bluffington, ousting the always campaigning Mayor Bob White. It's good to be a Dink, which, if you didn't catch on to the joke, stands for double income, no kids.
Hello there, fellas. How's business?
Not so good, Mr. Dink.
Well, fine. You know, it's good to see that free enterprise is alive and kicking. The spirit that made our forefathers different from our regular fathers.
Run for it, boys. I hear a speech coming on.
At home, there's Doug's parents and his older sister, Judy, a dramatic teenage girl invested in the arts, an aspiring actress and anachronistic beatnik, quick with a sharp, sarcastic jab, but just as often on Doug's side as things get tough.
Dim the lights. Raise the curtain. It's showtime.
Judy is who I want to be when I grow up. And of course there's Doug's best friend, his dog Porkchop, an especially clever pooch who lives in a plastic igloo with all the modern conveniences. Of course, even Porkchop has his little dramas, like that time he fell in love with a girl dog, and Doug was worried he'd lose Porkchop for good.
Little did I know this dating thing was just beginning. Are you sure you want to go? Well, the radio says nasty weather tonight. Maybe you should stay home.
With 2 10 to 11-minute cartoons per episode, the show followed Doug through relatable dramas many young people go through. In Doug's Cool Shoes, Doug thinks he'll be cool and popular if he buys a pair of Sky Davis Air Jet shoes, only to find out that chasing fashion trends is more trouble than it's worth.
Experience the fantasy.
Well, how far do I go before I feel the fantasy?
Well there, little man. Don't we feel transplendent? And to think, this is our last pair. We are so lucky.
In Doug Needs Money, Doug and Skeeter accidentally break Mr. Dink's new customized grill playing softball in the yard, and they rush to earn money to replace it before Mr. Dink finds out. Eventually, they'll learn a lesson in taking responsibility and owning up to your mistakes.
What's he gonna say when I tell him I broke his brand new grill and ruined his big barbecue?
Excuse me.
Mr. Dink? I broke your grill. I'm sorry.
You broke my grill? You broke my grill? You broke my grill?
In Doug's Doodle, Doug accidentally hands in an embarrassing drawing in with his homework and starts crafting a way to get it back before his teacher, Mrs. Wingo, notices. This looks like a job for Smash Adams, secret agent.
Whoa, seemed like an awful lot of work.
Oh, yeah, about that. Doug has quite the active imagination, and the problems he faces get interpreted as adventures from various hero personas played out in his head, like Smash Adams here, or Race Canyon, an Indiana Jones-style adventurer. But his most common alter ego is the superhero Quail Man.
I surrender. Go ahead, take my brain.
I knew you'd see it my way, Quail Man. You tricked me!
These sequences add some visual flair, some fun animation, but these heroic characters of Doug's will only get him so far as he deals with everyday life. He has to learn and grow. And that gets to the heart of the show. What makes Doug the cartoon so remarkable is how unremarkable it actually is. It's just a show about a young boy going to school, hanging out with friends, and dealing with normal, everyday problems. Of course, coming-of-age stories aimed at children and young adults are nothing new. Doug has a lot in common with the works of Judy Blume, Beverly Cleary, Louis Sachar, and Gordon Corman. But those are books. Television was no stranger to young adult stories either, ranging from dramas to sitcoms. Nickelodeon was already airing a teen soap opera called 15 at this time. But those were all live action shows. Turning towards animation, a medium only limited by one's imagination, to tell simple, grounded stories like this, it just really wasn't done. In a world of Transformers, Ninja Turtles, and DuckTales, Nickelodeon decided they were going to enter the animation game with an 11-year-old boy being nervous about getting a haircut.
Dear Journal, hi, it's me, Doug. I got my ears lowered today. Everybody wanted to make me different, but I know now that you have to be who you are. 'Cause if you're not who you are, then who are you?
I would go so far as to say that Doug is the most authorial Nickelodeon show we've covered so far. We've seen shows with strong creative voices behind them, but none of them seem to relate to their own childhoods as much as this. Not autobiographical per se, but definitely drawn from life. So with that in mind, let's reintroduce ourselves to this Jim Jinkins fellow. Born in 1953 in Richmond, Virginia, Jinkins would end up putting a lot of details from his school days into the show. There was a real Patty in my life whom I had a massive crush on for forever, it felt like. Certainly from junior high through high school. And there was a guy down the street named Roger who lived next door to a family whose name was Klotz, so I sort of put that together. The best teacher I ever had in my life's name was Miss Wingo, so she got to be in the show. And so anybody that was from Richmond and was from my past got sort of an extra bonus when they watched the show. Jinkins graduated from Hermitage High School in 1971, then majored in art and communications at David Lipscomb College, a Christian university in Nashville, Tennessee. There, he was a cartoonist for the student newspaper and created a number of personas, like the school mascot, Bison Man, a wacky Master of Ceremonies character named Rodney Roughrider, and he was voted as his class's Bachelor of Ugliness, which isn't so much a persona as it is just rude to the guy. Jim Jinkins was heavily involved in his faith, and for a time had aspirations to become a youth minister. While religion doesn't come up in Doug, I'm pretty sure we don't even see a church until the show's very final episode, Jinkins still based the funny household's habits around those he experienced growing up in a family of deep faith. They were still a Christian household, even if it never came up. After Nashville, Jinkins went to Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, doing postgraduate studies in photography and cinema. There, he joined the university's audiovisual department and eventually found himself responsible for updating their puppetry program. While there, he began to hear rumors of some company developing a new children's puppet show for their experimental cable service. And that sounded exactly like Jinkins's sort of thing, except he didn't know how to get in contact with them. Then one day, Jinkins was in a local fabric store buying burlap for a puppet set when he crossed paths with a production assistant for this new show. Excited, Jinkins said he would do anything to work on it, and was soon hired as a set painter. There, he met the show's main puppeteer, Brad Williams, and became his assistant, playing the left hand for the larger two-person puppets. And that's how Jim Jinkins found himself working on Pinwheel.
I'm plus, I'm minus. We're never there when someone tries to find us. We run around all day with nothing much to say. But add some here, take some away.
Jim Jinkins was one of the few true day one creatives on Nickelodeon, before Jerry Laybourne, before Cy Schneider, contributing to the experimental Cube era in 1977, then moving with the show to New York City for Nickelodeon's proper premiere in 1979. For Pinwheel, he would play Minus, twin brother to Brad Williams Plus, as well as serve as the show's graphic director. For Nickelodeon's first year, he also did production design for By the Way, Video Comics, and Hocus Focus, the latter of which he also occasionally acted for.
You got an agent?
No. What's an agent?
Someone to take care of your career. Someone to make sure you're not taken advantage of in the high-pressured world of showbiz. My agent card. You can't keep the card, kid. That's right, I could shoot a major motion picture. Lines around the box. Big bucks. Maybe even an Oscar.
Oscar who?
In 1981, Jim Jinkins would leave Pinwheel and Nickelodeon to help do some of the early graphic work for Warner Amex's new hit music video channel, MTV. Though he did return to Pinwheel to puppeteer live performances like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and the Pinwheel live shows at county fairs and hospitals. And from there, Jim Jinkins spent most of the 1980s bouncing from one odd job to the next, like doing the illustrations for 1983's The Joy of Pigging Out by David Hoffman, where you can start to see some early hints of the art style that would be used for Doug. He also did graphics work for the PBS math show Square One TV, produced by the Children's Television Workshop, and took a stab at directing straight-to-video projects, like this 1989 piece on how you kids need to worry about how commercials sell things to you.
Some commercials use kids who are good athletes, or the kids may practice a lot, but all of them use the magic of editing. With that kind of magic, the only thing that could end up disappearing is your money.
However, this was not the smoothest time in Jinkins's life. Around 1985, he would face a lack of steady work, a bad breakup, and a nasty bicycling accident. And to help with all of that, Jinkins turned towards doodling. And in his notebook, he made a little guy, a stand-in for himself to express the difficult things he was going through. Initially, the little guy didn't have a name. Then he was called Brian, because Jinkins wanted this guy to be an everyman with a common name. And then finally settled on Doug. After playing around with the design, he then showed it to David Campbell. Campbell was a theater producer and talent agent out of New York City, whose clients would eventually include comedians like Louis C.K., Brett Butler, and Joel Hodgson, later of whom he helped get Mystery Science Theater 3000 onto cable television. He and Jinkins had met through church shortly after Jinkins had moved to New York for Pinwheel, and they remained close friends. Campbell was intrigued by Doug, and the two of them spent an evening at a Mexican restaurant, getting absolutely hammered on margaritas, and developing a supporting cast of characters and a town for them to live in. Something idyllic and drawn from nostalgia. I wanted to create a place where there was no overdue rent and no delinquent phone bills. A place called Bluffington. It really seemed like they had something here, but how would they use it? A children's book might work. To assist him in this, Jinkins brought in Joe Aaron, whom Jinkins had met working on Square One TV. With Aaron on writing and Jinkins on art, they came up with Doug Got a New Pair of Shoes, in which the young Doug struggles to keep up with the latest shoe fashions. Hey, that sounds familiar. The book was shopped around, but found nothing but rejection letters from all the major publishers. Instead, Doug would make his premiere in animation, specifically commercials for grapefruit juice in 1988.
What does grapefruit juice have in common with a palm tree? They're both grown in Florida. Of course, grapefruit juice doesn't sway in the wind, but it does feel like a cool breeze. Sure, palm trees are cool and refreshing, but grapefruit juice is cool and refreshing and is much better for your health than a palm tree. Which is fortunate, because grapefruit juice is filled with fun and lively things you could never get from a palm tree. So for a cool, refreshing taste, leave the palm trees on the beach and drink grapefruit juice on the rocks. 100% pure Florida grapefruit juice.
One of the freelance gigs was to go to ad agencies and show them how I draw, and they go, "Oh, great! We're going to use this well-known artist like R.O. Blackman or somebody, but for this test, we're going to use you." And that's really where the Florida grapefruit growers commercials came from. Was them saying, "We want you to design the characters for testing," but it tested so strongly they went, "We're using you." For the real commercials.
The Florida grapefruit juice commercials were produced by commercial animation studio house The Ink Tank, directed by founder R.O. Blackman, and animated by Tony Eastman. Jim Jinkins' character designs worked well with the Ink Tank's house style of thin, squiggly line work, and it goes to show how Jinkins nailed the character's everyman qualities. On the show, Doug is 11. In these commercials, he's an adult, and the character design is exactly the same. It's only the context that ages him. Doug would show up one more time in 1989 in a bumper for the USA Network. A little off-model, but this time he had pork chop by his side. All of this was building up a portfolio, a book to introduce the characters and the kind of stories they tell, some animation samples on how the designs would look in motion. If, say, a children's cable network was looking into producing their own original animated television shows and were accepting submissions, Jinkins would surely be ready for it. Once again, Square One TV proved to be a great source of networking. Linda Shupak, whom Jinkins had known as a production associate for the Children's Television Workshop, had begun working at Nickelodeon for their on-air promotion team. And it was her who connected Jim Jinkins with Vanessa Coffey's Nicktoon project in 1990. A meeting was scheduled, a show was pitched, and halfway through, Vanessa Coffey got up out of her seat and ran out of the room, giving Jinkins quite the fright. Turns out she was calling the higher-ups. This Jim Jinkins is the real deal, and we're taking Doug to the pilot stage. Things happen quickly. Jinkins and David Campbell founded a new production company on July 20th, 1990. A couple of different names were considered: Blue Plate Productions, Bluff Co., Hooterdin, but Jinkins eventually settled on Jumbo Pictures. I didn't want to get pigeonholed as an animation company. I didn't want something with toon in it. Jumbo Pictures did it for me. If I was talking to someone in Hollywood, it sounded reasonable enough to do anything. Book scribe Joe Aaron was brought in to co-write the pilot, along with Ken Scarborough, a writer for the Comedy Channel show Higgins Boys and Gruber, whom Campbell also represented through his talent agency. On the animation side, Jumbo Pictures brought in Tony Eastman, one of the few people with actual experience animating the character, as well as Carol Millison, who had done animation for several Raggedy Ann and Berenstain Bear projects. The next step was to finally give these characters voices. Auditions were held, and it was Vanessa Coffey who chose Billy West to be the voice of Doug, who had come into the Nicktoons project through John Kay and the Ren and Stimpy show. Jinkins was hesitant about West at first, but soon changed his mind after he saw how much West took to the character. There's a lot of me in there, because I'm going through my own experiences in there, because I have a conscience. That's something that is missing in a lot of people these days. But Doug was a pure character, and I connected with it. You know, kids that watched Doug learned that he would be forgiving of someone that wronged him in any way. He'd also be apologetic when he learned that he had done something that was not the greatest thing in the world to do. There was accountability. Billy West would also voice Roger Klotz. Skeeter, Porkchop, and Mr. Dink will be voiced by Fred Newman, another super early Nickelodeon personality, the second and superior host of the children's talk show Livewire. Newman was also known for his mouth sounds, giving his characters fun little flares like Skeeter's honking noise. But even more than that, Newman provided a great deal of the show's soundtrack. His noises turned a cappella. Rounding out the cast was Constance Schulman as Patty Mayonnaise, an actress to film and stage who had originated the role of Annelle in the original off-Broadway run of Steel Magnolias, though kids in the early 90s might recognize her for doing commercials for, well, of all things, mayonnaise.
My mama used to make the best bologna sandwiches. Her secret? Kraft mayonnaise. Here you go, Mama. I even cut off the crust. Welcome to Kraft.
The fresh, creamy taste of real mayonnaise.
With a team put together, Jinkins and Jumbo Productions created their pilot, Doug Can't Dance.
Dear Diary, hi, it's me, Doug. You know, the school dance seemed like it happened a long time ago, but I remember it like it was only yesterday. It all began, well, this afternoon.
The school is hosting a costume dance party, and Doug is excited at the possibility of getting to dance with Patty. That is until Roger puts it into his head that he's probably not a good enough dancer, and is likely to make a fool of himself out on the dance floor. Of course, it turns out Doug has nothing to worry about.
What's going on here?
This is a great new dance.
Hey, wait a minute, I know that cake. Now, with a show this normal and with such minimal flair, you might have asked yourself why Doug was the premier Nicktoon, why he was the first one out of the gate over Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy. And the answer to that, at least in part, was because Doug was the biggest home run out of the entire Nicktoons pilot program. During focus group testing, Doug Can't Dance scored the highest out of all 8 pilots. And it was that simplicity of premise that made it possible. Audiences found it the most accessible and easy to understand of the 8. You didn't have the buy-in of an all-dinosaur rock band or Bird Reporter in the Old West or even stories from a baby's perspective. That, combined with Vanessa Coffey's initial enthusiasm, put Doug on the front lines of the Nicktoons project. With the series greenlit, Jumbo Pictures expanded its outfit to a 50-person staff, becoming the only New York City-based animation studio with a full series in production. Joe Aaron would help Jim Jinkins write a series bible, but after that he wouldn't follow the show. Ken Scarborough took the position as head writer. The writing staff included the likes of future Desperate Housewives producer John Party and Joey Murphy. They wrote Doug, Mayor for a Day, where Doug finds himself shadowing Mayor Bob White for a school project, only to find that the man is perhaps unqualified for his job.
Wow, Mayor Bob, you sure do stay calm under pressure.
I'm ruined. What am I going to do? Dozens of young people who in 10 years' time would have voted for me are to be denied their dreamsicles, their peanutty buddies, their dippity doodahs.
Are you worried, Mayor?
You bet I am.
There was future Malcolm in the Middle producer Alan J. Higgins, who wrote Doug's Cookin', with Doug and Patty partnered up for a home ec bake-off competition, but it turns out that Perfect Patty is actually quite bad at cooking, so the two of them do some kitchen boot camp at Doug's house.
Well, there's got to be something I can handle.
That's it, Patty.
That's what, Doug?
Look! I bet if we made a pizza, you'd do great.
You know something, Doug? It sounds crazy, but it just might work.
Future Shrek screenwriter Joe Stillman wrote Doug's Runaway Journal. Doug loses his journal, the framing device for the entire show, and is horrified to learn that Roger has found it. So much ammunition for bullying and blackmail. Thankfully, Roger doesn't read it, or rather, can't read it.
You didn't read it? Well, you had a chance to look at my most personal secrets and really embarrass me, and you didn't? Well, you could have made me the biggest loser in school, but you put a sock in it, funny. I would have been glad to read your stupid journal, but I couldn't. You couldn't? You call this handwriting? It's nothing but chicken scratches. If I were you, pal, I'd learn how to type fast.
Nickelodeon also had their own independent story editing department that covered all 3 of the original Nicktoons, led by supervising producer Mary Harrington and including Mitchell Kriegman, creator of Clarissa Explains It All, and Will McRobb, who had just evolved his Adventures of Pete and Pete shorts into semi-regular television specials. There was a lot of cross-pollination like this during the Nickelodeon 90s. There was definitely camaraderie and a quirkiness about who they were hiring. Sometimes it didn't work quite so well, but working with McRobb was awesome. I think there was something real special about being a part of Nickelodeon, figuring out what it would be. Tony Eastman remained on as the show's supervising director, but that ink tank house style was dialed back a few degrees, lines getting thicker and less squiggly. Joining the animation team, you had Yvette Kaplan, who would go on to do much of the animation for Beavis and Butthead, and who created the series Zack and Quack. Ken Kimmelman, who would also do a lot of animation for MTV with The Head and Daria. And Jean-Pierre Jacquet, who would direct the straight-to-video Beginner's Bible series. And the animation is quite impressive for a show this grounded. The show plays with perspective a lot, things tower over Doug to make him seem small, there's a lot of interesting shading and lighting work, and of course the imagination sequences let the animators play around with a lot of ideas. Dan Sawyer came in to assist Fred Newman with the soundtrack, his biggest credit at the time being the music arranger for the all-new Mickey Mouse Club. You know, the one with Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake, the one that was hosted by Fred Newman. Doug might just be the most "it's not what you know, it's who you know" cartoon ever. And speaking of music, you thought I was gonna forget the Beats, didn't ya? The Beats are the hottest rock band ever. Doug and Skeeter constantly dancing to such hits as Shout Your Lungs Out, I Need Mo Allowance, and their masterpiece, Killer Tofu.
Are-ee-oo, Killer Tofu.
Let's jump.
It was details like this that really put Doug over the top. With their marathon premiere on August 11th, 1991, all 3 Nicktoons raised Nickelodeon's ratings overnight, with Doug reaching a 2.0, meaning around 2% of American television-equipped households were watching Doug during its original broadcast, which roughly means more than 1.8 million households were tuning in to see this 11-year-old solve relatable problems. That's not network television numbers, but for original cable animation in the early 90s, that was really good. By all metrics, Doug was a success. Nickelodeon would end up contracting Jumbo Pictures for 65 episodes, 5 seasons with 13 episodes apiece, with a budget between $300,000 and $400,000 per episode. Season 2 would expand production internationally. As it usually goes, animation work was outsourced to South Korea, to Hanho Studios, whose fingerprints you could find all over 80s and 90s American television animation. But a bit more surprising was that Doug would become a French co-production. In October of 1991, representatives of Viacom attended MIPCOM, Marche International des Programmes de Communications, or the International Market of Communications Programs, an annual international trade show for European television hosted in Cannes, France. Beginning in 1985, MIPCOM was the ground floor for a lot of international deals for various television efforts, and it was here that French telecommunications conglomerate, Canal+, caught wind of Doug. While not devoid of Americanisms, the cartoon had enough general appeal for an international market, and Canal+ wanted to handle that distribution. Not only that, they wanted to help make it through their in-house animation studio, Ellipse Program, who had previously worked with Canadian animators Nelvana on shows like My Pet Monster and Rupert. Soon, Jim Jinkins found himself flying back and forth between Jumbo Pictures' loft suite in Soho, Manhattan, to Ellipse's offices in Paris, with material coming in and out of Hanho Studios in Seoul. And the results? The lines are perhaps a touch cleaner, the color grading tweaked ever so slightly, but Doug on Nickelodeon maintained a very consistent look and animation quality throughout its seasons. It just had more hands sharing the load. This wasn't the kind of show that had ongoing story arcs and changes to the status quo, meaning episodes could be freely shuffled about in reruns and you wouldn't really notice. And so production plugged along without a care in the world. Relatively peaceful compared to the production sides of Rugrats and especially the Ren and Stimpy show. Being a simple show about a simple boy had its advantages. And yet, I will emphasize again, In 1991, this was also a gamble. In the era of Gummy Bears and Captain Planet, you just didn't have shows like Doug.
Ugh, ugh. Good grief.
Okay, so it's not 100% without precedent. Charles M. Schulz's Peanuts had been gracing the newspaper comic strip section for 40 years by this point. While the Peanuts characters are a bit younger than Doug's characters, there's still plenty of parallels to be found. An anxiety-riddled boy with wavy lines for hair who wears the same outfit every day with an unrequited crush on a neighbor girl, while hanging out with a cast of quirky schoolmates. Heck, Porkchop is basically just 90s Snoopy. And of course, Peanuts had an extended run of popular television specials beginning in 1965, many including elements of somber introspection, stories of growing up just a little bit. After making them a television tradition, an animated Peanuts TV show would seem like a no-brainer. And yet, when the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show premiered on CBS in 1983, it kind of flopped. The ratings weren't as good as the specials, and Schulz didn't enjoy the workload, so only 18 episodes would be produced. If anything, Peanuts suggested that these kind of animated stories were more of a sometimes thing, a treat every once in a while, and it would seem unlikely that kids would tune in for a regular show like this. But Peanuts did aim for a slightly younger demographic. In terms of the actual stories being told, Doug was closer to Archie comics. Beginning in 1942, the adventures of teenager Archie Andrews and his friends at Riverdale could be found at any grocery store checkout line. Stories of crushes, dances, bullies, schoolwork, and hanging out at your favorite eating establishment. I once heard Bob Chipman refer to these sort of things as zitcoms, and I've been using that term ever since. Unlike Peanuts, Archie fleshed out his stories with adult characters, parents and teachers and such, and detailed the city they all lived in. There are a few decent character parallels as well. Archie's Jughead gave us the quirky best friend type that Doug Skeeter would excel at. However, as the years rolled on, Archie Comics began introducing more fanciful, weird elements to its world, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch or Josie and the Pussycats. Stuff that carried over when television became a thing and we started getting animated Archie shows. There were actually quite a few of them. The Archie Show, the Archie Comedy Hour, Archie's Funhouse, Archie's TV Funnies, the US of Archie, the new Archie and Sabrina Hour. Every show less serious than the last. Every show much more goofy and cartoony. The material gets sillier, the side characters spin off, and before you know it, Josie and the Pussycats are in outer space, and we've just lost the plot. Prior to Doug, the most recent Archie cartoon had been 1987's The New Archies, DiC's attempt at updating the characters for the 1980s. And in the very first episode, Archie and his friends meet an alien. Wow, so relatable. There just wasn't a working model for animated sitcoms prior to Doug. They either weren't successful or couldn't help themselves from being wacky to justify being a cartoon at all. After Doug is a whole other story. With the show's success, the animated young person drama exploded throughout the 1990s. Nickelodeon would follow it up with shows like Hey Arnold, Rocket Power, As Told by Ginger, All Grown Up. And outside of Nickelodeon, oh boy, Recess, Pepper Ann, Angela Anaconda, The Weekenders, Braceface, The Proud Family, all made possible thanks to Doug's proof of concept. And even some of the more goofier shows were more Doug-like than not. Teacher's Pet was Doug, but he's a dog. The New Archies may have had silly aliens to be less of a youth drama show, but Lloyd in Space had youth drama to be less of a silly alien show. All it takes is one success for an entire genre to open up. And with that sort of legacy, it is kind of weird how things ended up. With Doug's fourth season slated to begin in September of 1993, Jinkins and the team at Jumbo waited for the all-clear to begin work on Doug's fifth and final season. And they waited, and they waited, and then word came down that Nickelodeon was no longer going to produce Doug. The reasons given to Jumbo Pictures were vague, mostly about the show's budget and Nickelodeon being in the middle of a fiscal freeze. Whether that was true or not, Nickelodeon wasn't budging. All of a sudden, Doug was done. It just seems oddly cold to me. At the very least, the show would have a very appropriate finale. Airing on January 2nd, 1994, the final episode saw Doug and his friends ending their 6th grade school year, graduating from elementary school, and with junior high now on the horizon. It's not an ending, but a change, like the change the show began with.
Hey, Doug! Catch up! We're all going to the Honker Burger to celebrate!
It's a very sweet and appropriate note to end the series on. And also, completely coincidental, this was not actually meant to be the series finale, but it works. Of course, we all know this wasn't actually the end. When Nickelodeon broke the contract they had with Jumbo Pictures, this meant that Jumbo would be able to option a continuation of Doug to other networks after 2 years. In the meantime, the company was scrambling. Doug was the only show Jumbo Pictures had in production, and a lot of people were suddenly short a year's work. To keep the lights on, Jumbo would work on the preschool puppet show Allegra's Window for Nick Jr., which we'll talk about at length some other day, and that direct-to-video Beginner's Bible series I mentioned earlier. Around this time, Jinkins and Jumbo were trying to get a more adult-oriented series off the ground, and came into a deal with ESPN, of all places. Hoyt and Andy's Sportsbender, a spoof on sports news shows, was originally intended to air in November of 1995. But in July of 1995, the Walt Disney Company announced their $19 billion acquisition of ESPN's parent company, Capital Cities/ABC. And in the shakeup, Sportsbender was put on the shelves and would never air in the United States. A bummer to be sure, but then Jumbo went, well, we do have Linda Steiner's phone number now. Linda Steiner, acting president of ABC's children's television department, knew what Doug was and wanted to go to Disney. She really introduced Doug to them, and after this meteoric back and forth, we decided Disney was serious about taking Doug to many new levels. Jinkins and the Jumbo team would end up having multiple meetings with head of Disney TV, Dean Valentine, and Disney CEO Michael Eisner. And by the end of it, Disney had bought Jumbo Pictures for $5 million. And along with it, they bought the rights to Doug. While Nickelodeon still owned the seasons they had produced and could rerun and distribute them however they liked, Disney would own the trademark, all future merchandising rights, and brand new episodes of Doug to air on this ABC television network they had just bought. Ellipse would not follow Doug into this new era, and production was taken over by Walt Disney Television Animation. This moved things from New York City to Los Angeles. But not everybody was up for the move, most notably Billy West. I don't spend much time mourning the end of a cartoon. For me, it's time for another door to open. But what did bother me was that they were gonna go to Disney, and they were sending me these deal memos that I was ripping up and throwing away. They were outrageous demands. They wanted me to do upward to 12 characters for less money than I made on Nickelodeon. Replacing Billy West in the role of Doug would be Thomas Lyons, then credited as Tom McHugh, a big break for someone who had just been voicing minor characters in shows like Gravedale High and the Kid and Play cartoon. While he doesn't sound anything like Billy West's version of the character, Lyons did tap into the right kind of youthful boyishness needed for Doug.
I really learned a valuable lesson. Next time I need to do a report, I'm gonna listen to my dog. Listen, I'll explain all this later, but I just wanted to say, I think it's fine if you want to become a junior daughter. In fact, I think they're great. I just hope we're still friends. Good evening. Tonight, Knacks.
Roger Klotz was taken over by Chris Phillips, a voice younger Nickelodeon watchers was already familiar with.
Of course, you could always go with Funny here and sit on top of Mount Loser. Right, Funny?
Welcome back to Nick Jr. It's me, Face.
Fred Newman and Constance Schulman would follow into the Disney seasons, as would much of the original Jumbo crew. And surprisingly, Jerry Laybourne, who had ended her storied tenure as Nickelodeon president in 1996 to become the new head of television operations for Disney ABC. That's gotta be weird, right? To get a new job at a new company only to find out that you have the same boss? In any case, Doug was back from the dead. On September 7th, 1996, brand spankin' new Doug premiered on ABC.
Look who's new on ABC!
Doug, Dougie.
Cool, man. He hasn't changed a bit. Well, almost. And he's asked all of his friends to join him.
Whatever you say, Doug.
Where else could you have this much fun?
It'll be great.
Brand spanking new Doug. It's the place you want to be. Premiering tomorrow on ABC Saturday morning.
Our first episode of this era, Doug's Last Birthday, shakes up the status quo so much that it may as well have been an Etch-a-Sketch. As Doug prepares for the end of summer break and his first day of junior high, he is distressed at how much is changing. Some of it is minor things, like Skeeter having a growth spurt or Patty getting a haircut, but that's not all that's going on.
I said I won't be going to school with you anymore.
How come?
I'm going to be doing homeschool with my dad this year.
What?
And the hits just keep on coming. The Honker Burger has been sold and converted into a French restaurant, the Beats have broken up, and Roger Klotz, Dog's longtime nemesis, is now rich.
Hey, how about my new house?
The house next to ours? How nice.
And the cherry on top of this wild Sunday, there's gonna be a new funny in the house.
Your father's trying to tell you we're going to have a baby.
Oh, Mom, that's great. Way to go, Dad.
Dad?
I'll explain later, Doug.
It's a lot. And I think for a lot of original Doug fans, it might have felt like too much, like Disney had little regard for what came before. I think for people of a certain age, this would have been one of the first times they experienced that emotion of, this thing I liked when I was younger is different and I don't like that. I sympathize for those who felt it a shock, but I'm going to make the case that the changes were both good and necessary. First thing we have to consider, this was a continuation of a cable show on network television, which meant a huge expansion of its audience. Nickelodeon was one of the most successful cable channels in history, but that doesn't mean much compared to free over-the-air network TV. For example, the most watched single broadcast in Nickelodeon's history was the Rugrats All Growed Up special on Saturday, July 21st, 2001, which gathered an audience of just shy of 12 million. Pretty impressive, but also more than a million short of a Thursday episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on ABC that same week. Not even a special event episode, just a casual, midweek game show. As widespread as cable television had become in the 1990s, it was always going to be far less accessible and have a far smaller audience than the networks. This meant that not only did Disney's Doug have a larger potential audience than Nickelodeon's Doug, it had a larger audience with no experience with Nickelodeon's Doug. For every Nicktoon kid watching, there were 9 kids who hadn't seen an episode of Doug in their life. This first episode is pulling double duty, because yes, it is changing the status quo for longtime Doug viewers, but it is also establishing a status quo for those new to the franchise, reintroducing the characters and their dynamics with each other. It's also just a generally good idea for a series about growing up and dealing with life's little problems. Change is a driving factor in most coming-of-age stories. Changes in our friendships, in our family, changes in our bodies. These are things we all deal with, and it's a good source of drama. And this is the note Doug started with all the way back in 1991, the first episode being Doug moving to a new town and making new friends. There was precedent for this kind of thing. And this wasn't a big Disney studio mandate, these were all creative decisions made by Jim Jinkins. So I think, overall, this was the right call for Disney's Doug. Do I like every change? Nah, I think they did Connie pretty dirty here.
Connie? You look different.
Thanks, Doug. I just got back from Camp Makeover.
Whoa.
What do you think of the new me?
It's not that Connie got thinner, it's that it suggests that rapid weight loss programs like fat camps are sustainable and healthy to pressure children through. Weight fluctuates with age. You could have just said Connie got thinner as she got older, instead of suggesting that losing weight is quick and easy, and therefore you should feel ashamed for being overweight, you silly child you. It's weird, because there are episodes before and after this change that address body dysmorphia and our society's unhealthy relationships with weight loss. In Season 4, you had Doug Tips the Scales, in which Doug becomes self-conscious of his figure when he's invited to a pool party, and he tries to lose some weight through aggressively masculine exercise videos.
Prepare to suffer. 1, arms up. 2, legs out. 3, head back. 4, toes in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, fatty. Your blubber disgusts me.
Pork chop!
And then jumping ahead to Season 6, we had the episode Doug's Chubby Buddy, where Patty develops an unhealthy relationship with her weight, brought about by television promoting an unreasonable beauty standard, which drives Patty into a dangerous routine of eating too little and working out too much.
No thanks, I'd only retain it. She is so disciplined. Doug, I'm sorry.
It's odd that Connie's experience with the fat camp isn't brought up in this later episode. Her situation just feels so at odds with the rest of the series. Most everything else that Disney's Doug changed was pretty reasonable, opened the doors for new stories, and provided a new audience with a version of the show that was distinctly theirs. Doug also gets a second antagonist, Guy Graham, a cool upperclassman who tries to swoop in and win Patty over. You snooze, you lose, Doug.
I don't know, guys. Patty and I had a fantabulous time. It was kicking, it was slamming, it was...
Hey, guy, cut the hype. Can't you just admit it was a little dull? You always make such a production out of everything.
Disney's Doug switched from 2 11-minute stories per episode to 1 22-minute story, and had some actual continuity between episodes. Subplots like the kids trying to find a new place to hang out after the closure of Honkerburger, Mrs. Funny's pregnancy progressing, and Skeeter taking up monster hunting as a hobby, all playing out in the background of the episode.
I'm strangely repulsed, and yet attracted.
Many of the writers from Nickelodeon's Doug carried over to the Disney version, but there were some new faces as well. There was Scott Fellows, future creator of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide and Big Time Rush. One of his episodes was Doug's Great Opportunity, in which Doug becomes a cartoonist for the school newspaper. Hey, that sounds familiar.
Hey, you know what you got here? Smell it. Touch it. Feel that? You know what it is? The power of the press! You've decided this election! You know what people are gonna do when they see this? What? Vote for Patty!
There was Steve Banos, who also did a lot of acting. You might remember him as the algebra teacher in Freaks and Geeks. One of his episodes, Doug Gets a Roommate, greatly expands on Ned, one of Roger's gang of bullies. After Ned's house burns down, he has to stay with Doug for a while. And Doug learns that there's a different side to everybody.
Ned? That was amazing!
That was the first time I ever got that far without somebody pulling the bench out from under me.
And there was Betty G. Burney. Younger generations probably know her books chronicling the adventures of Humphrey the Hamster. She wrote Doug's Concert Crisis, in which Doug claims he has 20 tickets for an upcoming concert, but truthfully, he only has 2. A lie that's about to blow up in his face.
But how can I figure out who to invite? Kids are offering me all kinds of stuff for tickets.
I think I understand, little bro. When you're famous or even know somebody famous, everybody wants to be your friend. It gets hard to tell if people really like you for yourself.
But you're famous, and I like you for yourself.
You do?
Except when you call me little bro.
Oh, sorry about that, little... Doug.
It feels very much in line with the Doug that had come before. In fact, you know what? I'm going to say it. Disney's Doug is good. Pound for pound, I would still say Nickelodeon's Doug is a bit better. The animation is a little less playful with Disney, but I'd call these minor grievances in what's otherwise a very solid show. And despite what common opinion might suggest, it was also a pretty successful show.
Monday morning, wake up time, get to work and stand in line. Wednesday, Thursday, jammed in the middle. Once again, make fools a riddle. What struck me loose, but plays like a fiddle. Friday, Saturday morning. Friday has an exit sign, but getting there still takes some time. What would make you feel real fine?
the ride inside Disney's One Saturday Morning, the place where Saturdays are made with Recess, Doug, and Pepper Ann. Saturdays on ABC.
On September 13th, 1997, ABC premiered their Disney's One Saturday Morning block, with Doug sharing the spotlight with the Jim Jinkins-produced 101 Dalmatians the series, The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Jungle Cubs, and two shows that wouldn't have existed without Doug's proof of concept, Recess and Pepper Ann. The block was a huge success in ratings, beating out Fox, who had been #1 on Saturday mornings since 1993. And Doug was named as a major part of that success. And with that success came a huge marketing push. Dolls, fast food prizes, tie-in books, a Game Boy Color game, and somewhat infamously, a live stage show that ran for 2 years at Disney MGM Studios in Florida. I'm really not sure why they thought Doug's wacky multicolored designs would translate well onto actual human beings.
You start with a new kid. Figure he's nice.
Yeah, right! What kind of a stupid? Well, hey! You're itching to slug.
Come on, Roger.
Yeah, man!
There's days when he's crazy, and some when he's sweet.
But he's always your buddy.
When he's a guy alive like that.
Of course, there was only one place this would all end up. In 1998, Nickelodeon Movies released their first animated film and the first film based on a Nicktoon, The Rugrats Movie, and it was a huge success, reaching #1 in the box office and grossing over $140 million. For a time, The Rugrats Movie was the most successful non-Disney animated film. So you can imagine Disney would take notice. Around this same time, Disney Television Animation had dipped their toes in making theatrical spin-offs of their television offerings, and they were looking to expand that into a yearly release schedule. And, well, they sort of had a Nicktoon they could make into a film. On March 26, 1999, theaters saw the premiere of Doug's first movie.
On March 26th, only in theaters, it's the biggest adventure of Doug's life. It's Doug's first movie. Legend has told of a monster in Lucky Duck Lake.
Something bad behind me, isn't there?
Can Doug face his biggest adventure ever?
He's not scary at all.
Can Doug save the dance from the evil guys out to destroy the monster of Lucky Duck Lake? And tell Patty Mayonnaise how he really feels?
Oh, man!
All your questions will be answered in Doug's first movie. Rated G. Starts Friday, March 26th.
Written by head writer Ken Scarborough and directed by Maurice Joyce, Doug's first movie sees Doug doing his usual thing, trying to find a way to get close to Patty Mayonnaise without confessing his crush, this time trying to work with her on the school's upcoming Valentine's Day dance. One problem, Guy has swooped in and stolen the role from him.
Hello, kids. Oh, Doug, I see you're still pestering Patty. Sorry, we have to get to Funky Town.
See ya, Doug.
But...
And to make matters worse, there's a monster. After all of Skeeter's monster hunting, he finally found the real deal at Lucky Duck Lake, which happens to be where Bluff Co., the company run by Phoebe's father, wealthy elitist Bill Bluff, is dumping all of their factory waste. The monster, whom the boys name Herman Melville, is actually quite sweet, but he's also evidence of a crime, so everyone's out to get him.
Okay, ready?
Right, freeze!
Hey, ready to be on TV?
Okay, hand over the monster.
Wrong garage, I'm afraid. No monsters here.
Yet!
Sir, I think we have the wrong house.
Doug's first movie was originally conceived as a straight-to-video feature, and you can tell. It doesn't really shake that movie-length episode feel. The animation is a little more polished, but not to a notable degree the way the Rugrats movie was. It certainly doesn't do much to introduce these characters and their dynamics for an unfamiliar theater audience, and it doesn't have a big event moment for the fans, something that shakes up the status quo. The Rugrats movie introduced Tommy's new little brother. The Hey Arnold movie had Helga finally admit to Arnold that she loves him. The Wild Thornberrys movie had Big Sister Debbie learn about Eliza's powers to speak with animals. Doug's first movie just doesn't have that. You'd think at least Bill Bluff would go to prison for polluting the lake and threatening children, but our villain of the film just goes, "Oopsie doopsie, you caught me, I'll clean everything up." What Doug's first movie does is break from the grounded slice-of-life sitcom of the series with the introduction of Melvin the Monster. It's Doug following in the footsteps of Archie Comics and starting to add goofy supernatural nonsense to the world. This is Archie Andrews meeting that alien. Also, Roger Klotz gets a Julia Child maid robot.
Sleep is softly. Oh, my back. You gotta stop singing. Lay you down now and it's only 8:30. I'm gonna get those guys.
I'll go to bat for Disney's Doug any day of the week, but Doug's first movie just doesn't work in either conception or execution. Made on a budget of $5 million, which is peanuts for Disney, it did manage to make its money back, grossing $19.5 million in ticket sales, but still failed to reach expectations, peaking at number 5 in the box office and getting pretty weak reviews. It did well enough for Disney television animation to keep trying, with a Recess movie that did pretty well and a Teacher's Pet movie that bombed. However, Doug's first movie didn't do well enough for Disney to retain its interest in Doug. Doug's 7th and final season ended on June 26, 1999, once again leaving our characters on the cusp of another big milestone in their lives.
Something's wrong with my voice, but I'm sure that'll be better soon. Judy's off at college, and Dirtbike is talking. I even have a date with Patty Mayonnaise. You know what, Journal? Hey, that was the last line of the last page. My journal's all filled up. For me? An early birthday gift? A brand new journal! Thanks, Porkchop! How'd you know? Wow, Porkchop, there's a lot of blank pages in here. Who knows what big giant changes we'll fill them up with. So long, everybody. It's been fun. Your friend forever, Doug.
Altogether, Disney's Doug ran for 3 seasons, for a total of 65 episodes, the number that Nickelodeon had originally promised. Nickelodeon and Disney combined, Doug would have 117 episodes, plus a movie in the span of 8 years. That's not a bad run by any measure. And this time, Jim Jinkins and Jumbo Productions were not suddenly scrambling to find work. They were already in the middle of producing the preschool show PB&J Otter for Playhouse Disney. But we'll save the rest of the Jim Jinkins story when we get to 1994 and talk about Allegra's Window. Disney's Doug would continue to rerun as part of Disney's One Saturday Morning until September 8th, 2001, then sporadically aired on both the Disney Channel and Toon Disney until 2004. While all of this was going on, Nickelodeon continued to rerun their episodes of Doug. Would have been silly not to take advantage of how Disney was promoting the property. Doug's last regular broadcast on Nickelodeon would air on February 2nd, 2006. On my personal timescale, Doug began just shy of me starting grade school and ended after I had graduated. The very first Nicktoon, following me through my adolescence, giving me advice. Of course, Nickelodeon has re-aired their Doug as part of their nostalgia brand, the show popping up on Noggin, Nicktoons, and Nick Rewind as recently as 2021, hoping to hook the 90s kids like me. Nickelodeon would release a handful of episodes on VHS, and then the full series on DVD in 2014. You can stream the show on demand on Amazon Prime, but Paramount Plus took down their stream of it in 2024 because we can't have nice things. Disney's Doug didn't get a DVD release except for the movie, but the entire series is available on Disney Plus at the time of this writing. Every once in a while, the idea of bringing back Doug will come up, but it never goes anywhere. A few years ago, Jim Jinkins revealed that he had developed a pitch for a show that followed the children of Doug's main cast, but this was rejected by Disney. And I kind of think that's for the best. I love Doug. I truly do. It is my personal favorite of the 3 original Nicktoons. It's also the prototype for a genre of animated show that has been iterated on and in many cases improved upon. I don't think there's that many unique stories for the franchise to tell these days, and I don't think it'd be even much of a pull for us middle-aged millennials anymore, because Disney still owns it, and the version everyone's nostalgic for is the Nickelodeon version. So let us appreciate the Doug that we have. A show built on Jim Jinkins' talents. As an artist, yes. As a creative, no doubt. But most importantly, as a people person. Jinkins spent the decade preceding the show building a community of friends and like-minded talents, and then those guys went on to create a very nice show. A very wholesome, pleasant show, and also a very risky show. One that seemed to go against the conventional wisdom for animated children's programming at the time. And the results opened up the floodgates for new, dramatic cartoons hitting the airways. And if nothing else, the beats will live forever.
Fast food feels fuzzy, 'cause it's made from stuff that's scuzzy. I always thought I was such a nerd. I refused to touch that strange bean curd. I wouldn't eat it, wow, but it ate you. I-E-O, killer tofu. E-I-O-E-O, killer tofu.
Next time, we continue on with the Nicktoons trilogy with a cartoon that started off little, but grew up to become one of the biggest shows in Nickelodeon's long history. Today we're giving a shout out to Cat Blackard, who greatly assisted me in researching this video, especially the Disney's Doug stuff. She helped me get a copy of the Disney's Doug Show Bible, and a handful of magazine interviews with Jim Jinkins that I might not have been able to find otherwise. Thank you so much, Cat. And thank you all for watching. If you'd like to support Knacks and other Pop Arena projects, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar goes to production values, research materials, and 1 gallon of gas. You can also support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, leaving a comment, following me on social media, sending a one-time donation through PayPal or Coffee, and sharing Knacks with all your friends. Thank you again, and remember, Black Lives Matter, trans rights are human rights, and free Palestine.